Well, thanks everybody for joining today. This is Kurt with Wellness Wavemakers. This is the first in our series, which we hope will help people understand what's available to them uh, outside of maybe just the normal Western medicine or functional medicine. Obviously, we don't make any medical claims, and we don't want you to do anything other than listen to your doctor and follow their directions. But just take in this information as a new way of looking at things, and any new information you may find stunning, you're welcome to try it out yourself, and just as I am doing. So, with that, I wanted to introduce my new friend. This is Mike Woods. He's the president and founder of Heartstrong Nutraceuticals. We first met in Dallas just a month ago at the Changing Life and Destiny conference. Had about 100 of the top new technologies and supplement manufacturers that are available to people. And it was stunning. It was my mind was blown, frankly, by what we saw there, and came back with a variety of new ideas and modalities that we can add to our practice here at Waverider Scalar in Phoenix. But Mike's, he's been dedicated to a healthy lifestyle his whole life. And I'll let him tell you the story about what happened to him, because he had a history of some heart issues and arterial issues in the family. So he decided to do something about it. And in the process, found a combination of vitamins and some other things I'll let him tell you about. But really, it's pretty fascinating. So, Mike, thanks for being on the show today.
It is my pleasure. Happy to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I have to ask, we had the luxury of meeting Michi, your wife, at the
Yep.
conference. How's she doing?
She's doing great. She says hello. She's excited about us getting the truth out to all the people. So thanks for making the platform available.
Absolutely. And as I said when we before we started, I think it's serendipitous that you have a picture of a wave in the back of your picture there. So appreciate it. And I love the
That
fact,
was unscripted. That's just the way that it
unscripted too. We almost called this wellness warriors. And so when I
was.
see the other picture of the samurai guy, I'm like,
Yep.
we're on the same vibe in more ways.
Well, from when we were chatting, bro, it was so obvious we're on the same wavelength, right?
Very much so. Yeah, yeah, it was awesome. Well, I think the main thing here is just to kind of kick it off is, the goal of our show is really do a bit of a deep dive with different leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs, thought leaders in the space, the wellness space, naturopathic space, anything that's basically leading to integrative medicine that can complement what's already out there. And Western medicine does a great job in many respects of treating the symptoms. And when things get so bad, you need absolute surgery or those kind that
Hmm.
we're blessed to have the technology available to us, but so many people are on medications, and so many people have complications from side effects. It just is of great interest to me. I'm so excited about this as our initial broadcast, because talking with you, you revealed some insights to me that I was completely unaware of, and the science and the documented journals behind it. It's just amazing. So I guess I was drawn to you as a guest, obviously, because you're concerned about the same things, and your path led you down, or journey led you down a path that is fascinating to me. And I'm curious, when you started out with this, what was the mindset that you faced in medicine, and looking at what you were trying to solve for? So maybe I'll just kick it off. Let you tell the audience here what you were facing and what you decided to do, and what
Sure.
what you ran into.
Sure. I have been involved in the nutritional supplement space for over 35 years. So that, essentially my entire adult life.
Mhm.
And as a result of that, yeah, and let me parenthetically say that everything was all organic. There's nothing synthetic. It's all plant-based, phytonutrients. So for 35 years, I've been kind of on the cutting edge of nutritional supplementation. Things that I can remember in the early 90s, talking, reading research about free radicals and oxidative stress damage. And that was so revolutionary. Nobody knew about that stuff back then. But I've been doing this forever. Um, but I guess my highest value is truth. And so it just offends me personally when we are misled. And whether it's intentional or not, to me, it's indistinguishable. I don't like being lied to. And I just want to know the facts. And I like what you said, man, I so appreciate Western medicine. If I'm in a car wreck and my body's crushed, I want to go to the trauma center. But I've
Right.
got many, many friends. Some of them are Nobel nominated physicians. I mean, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant doctors. And they tell me that in medical school, they either get no training in nutritional therapy or maybe 45 minutes. They're just not taught the alternative ways of health. And so that's problematic. If we go back to Hippocrates, the Hippocratic Oath, and he's famous as saying food is medicine. Yet somehow, boy, has Western medicine ever thrown that out. And man, we could go down so many rabbit holes about the big agra and, the chemicals and the weed killers. And then the companies that own the weed killers also own drug companies. And it's just an absolute mess. So my highest value is truth. And so I just wanted to understand, first of all, what's going on in my body and what are they telling me so that I can make discernments for my health choices. And then upon these amazing revelations, then it's a moral imperative that, we'll go into the story. But once I found these truths and I experimented on myself and had, according to my doctor, miraculous results. Like what happened to me is medically impossible, and yet it happened. So then it was a moral imperative. So what do we do with this information? And obviously, after a lot of deliberation, it was like, well, we have to get it out to the people. We have to let people know.
Yep, absolutely. So I know your story about, you were concerned about your family history of heart issues, heart disease, your father, etc., and you knew
Mhm.
you needed to get checked. And so
Yep.
you found, I think it was a Groupon or something like that, and found a place to go to get a heart scan and get the calcium score. And maybe you can take it from there in terms of what you
Sure.
found out and then what you decided to do.
Yeah, I'll give you kind of the backstory. So, like I said,
Mm,
I've been involved in nutritional supplements for over 35 years. I also have a horrible family history of heart
yeah.
disease. As a result of one of my companies, I went out, my wife and I went out to Southern California to a really prestigious clinic. This was 25 years ago, and had it was a $50 million facility, cutting edge, right on the cutting edge of science. And they did complete panels, body composition, et cetera, et cetera. But they also did a DNA test, which back then, man, that was cutting edge. And when
Mm,
they analyzed my DNA, they said that I have a thing called the IL-1 gene, which means I'm predisposed to be chronically inflamed, which everybody knows now is really, really bad, that all disease they're saying starts with inflammation. Well, I'm chronically inflamed. So at that point, I really doubled down on, okay, I got this horrible family history. Everybody, on my mother's side, my grandfather died when he was 43, just dropped dead in the living room after work. On my father's side, my grandfather had 3 heart attacks. The third one got him when he was 72. My father's already died once and the EMTs brought him back. So horrible, horrible family history. But I was in these two worlds. I'm in the natural world, but I'm also not denying the biology. Okay. So after that DNA test, I went, okay, I'm going to be the poster child for doing it right. So I'm taking all organic natural supplements. I'm taking omega-3 fish oils. I'm taking CoQ10. I'm taking garlic supplements. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I exercise 5 days a week. I mean, when I say exercise, I work out hard 5 days a week. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be okay. Now, one of the symptoms of having a chronic inflammation is that you have elevated cholesterol. Cholesterol, and here's a little recreational reading on my desk right now. The great cholesterol myth. Cholesterol is absolutely critical for life. If you don't have cholesterol, you're dead in 1 second. It's in every cell of our body. Yet there's been a whole war on cholesterol. And I'm a researcher. That's just my nature. I love to learn and study. So one of the results of having chronic inflammation is you have elevated cholesterol levels. Cholesterol is a response to inflammation. It's kind of like nature's Band-Aid. And so I always had slightly elevated cholesterol, but I did the reading and I did the research. And so my doc and I go to a boutique doctor. He doesn't take insurance. He's higher end and, he's expensive. But
mm,
as such, he's also really, really talented because,
mhm.
he's got to be to keep his clients happy. And
Yep.
he would talk to me about my cholesterol levels. He says, Mike, your cholesterol is a little elevated. And when I say elevated, it would go in between, say, 200 and 250, kind of float around that,
Okay.
which lots of health practitioners say is totally normal.
Yeah.
But they keep lowering the level of what's healthy, and then they prescribe statin drugs. Well, I did the research and I was convinced that there's no way I'm going to take a statin drug. They're toxic to the liver. They cause muscle wasting. In fact, I got a study posted on my website, just came out a few months ago. people on certain classifications of statin drugs have a 100%, not 10, not 20, a 100% increase in dementia risk. And I mean,
Wow.
you and I are of the same generation, Kurt. When I was a
Yeah.
little kid, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, I don't even remember hearing about dementia. It didn't exist. You know, you might hear about your friend Joey's Uncle Bob is a little bit weird. Okay,
Right.
whatever. But you
Right.
did not hear that when you get old, you lose your memory and your brain doesn't function anymore. It just was unheard of. Now, parenthetically, isn't it interesting? When they introduced statin drugs into the United States and the world, all of a sudden there's just this explosion in dementia. Causation, correlation, I don't know, but I'm not going to take that drug. And when my doc would talk to me about cholesterol, he'd say, well, you know, there's this cholesterol issue. I said, Doc, save your breath. I'm never going to go off statin drugs, so just don't worry about it. And he goes, I said, I know they do this, they do this. And he goes, to his credit, he goes, well, that's true. Everything you said is true. And I went,
Mm.
good. Well, I'm not going to do it. But I was concerned, do I have plaques? Because that's what kills you. Hey, according to Harvard, 50% of the people that have heart attacks have regular, normal cholesterol. 50% of the people that have heart attacks have elevated cholesterol. You and I have a business background. Okay, 50% are normal, 50% are elevated. What does that tell us? Nothing.
Mm.
It's worthless data, right? So there's a difference between causation and correlation, right? The
Mhm.
simple fact of the matter is in virtually every urban fire, when a house is burning, there's a fire truck present. That doesn't mean fire trucks cause house fires, right?
Mm.
Yes, cholesterol is
Great, great
present
analogy.
in plaques. Yeah, cholesterol is present in plaques, but it doesn't cause the plaque. So anyway, so I was concerned about my health and my cardiovascular risk. And like you said, I heard about a test called a coronary artery calcium scan because I want to know, do I have plaques? I don't care about my cholesterol level. I want to know, do I have plaques? And so I read about this test and I'm sorry, typical man, I hauled off and I did nothing because in candor, I was afraid. I thought,
Yeah.
God, man, if I take this test and I have plaques, I don't want that. And you know how we are, and kind of delay it. And anyway, you can call it the Lord, you can call it the universe, you can call it Google's algorithm, whatever you want to call it. 3 days later, I got an email from Groupon, and it said coronary artery calcium test, $50. And I went, okay, all right, I'm getting the message. I bought the Groupon, went to beautiful cardiology center owned by a cardiologist, and that's all the machines and everything. And they did a coronary artery calcium scan. I was 56 at the time, and it came back and it said I was in the 50 to 75 percentile, meaning I
Mm.
was worse than the average 56-year-old male. Well, I think we can all agree that the average 56-year-old male in America is very unhealthy. And here
Mm.
I am. I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do. All these supplements. I don't drink. I don't smoke. Everything I'm supposed to do. And I'm worse than the average 56-year-old. So I had a little bit of a pity party for a couple of days. And then I went, okay, well, what's the solution? And I changed my focus of research, just doing searches, natural cures or natural treatments or natural, applications to dissolve heart plaques.
Yeah.
And Kurt, it was crazy what I started finding. All that, look, I got just files full of studies, right? All of this stuff that I'm reading, and it's going like, there are things in nature that have been around for a long time that
Mm.
are proven and shown in studies to dissolve plaques. I'm reading about nattokinase, which is an enzyme that comes from fermented soybeans. There's a food in Japan called natto, and they
Mm.
eat it almost every morning for breakfast, and it doesn't taste very nice, and it kind of
Yeah.
stinky to tell you the truth. So I never, took off in the United States, but in Japan they eat it all the time.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that in Japan they have the lowest incidence of cardiovascular disease in the modern world, right? In the industrialized world. Pretty interesting. But they
Mm.
they they identified this enzyme in natto called nattokinase. It was isolated back in the 1960s, and they're
Mm.
doing studies. Take an oral dose of this enzyme, and within 26 weeks, there's a 38% reduction in cardiac plaque.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and my brain is just exploding. It's just like, okay, this is goes back and forth between cancer and heart disease as the number one killer on planet Earth. And here's a natural little enzyme. You take this within, 6 months, there's a almost 40% reduction in plaque. And I'm going, why isn't this on the front page of the New York Times? Why isn't this on CNN? Why isn't this on Fox News? And of course, we all know the reasons, right? And we don't need to dig real deep because we're sophisticated and we know. But I was blown away. I learned about this other enzyme called serrapeptase. They
Hmm.
isolated it at the University of Chicago in the 1980s. And again, I mean, it dissolves fibrin, which is
Mm.
one of the key ingredients in plaques, not just in our heart, but all through our body. And I'm going, my gosh, this is unbelievable. I started studying about calcium displacement and dispersion in the body. It's like, what's going on? Why are calcium deposits forming in our arteries? And it was
Yeah.
so fascinating. The research started with postmenopausal women. They were falling down, breaking their hips. And so people said, well, we need to give them more calcium. Well, they gave them some calcium supplements, which did help their bone density somewhat, but it also hugely increased calcium deposits in their, kidney stones, gallstones, arterial sclerosis, and so they went, well, this is not good. Okay, we got a little bit denser bones, but you're going to die of a heart attack. So that's not good. So then their next iteration was they added D3, vitamin D3,
Mm.
which helps the absorption of calcium in the gut. And the calcifications got worse. And the missing ingredient was vitamin K2. And K2 is critical for the placement of calcium in our body. K2 directions it so that it doesn't go into our soft tissues, it goes into the bones and teeth. In my
Ah.
opinion, this is just my opinion, I believe it should be illegal to sell a D3 supplement without K2 in it. They
Mm.
just need to go together, in my opinion. Anyway, so I put all this stuff together and I put a little protocol together. I'm buying this stuff from Sprouts Farmers Market. I'm getting it from Amazon.com. I'm just sourcing all these independent things, putting them together in a protocol. And I said, I'll do this for a year, see what happens. Well, COVID hit. And so a year later, I couldn't get in and do the other testing. So it was about a year and a half later. I was in my doctor's office. They finally opened up again. I was in doing my annual, and he said, hey, Mike, your cholesterol is still a little elevated, and I know you're not going to do statin drugs, and that's fine. But there's a test called a coronary artery calcium scan. Okay, my doctor didn't know about the Groupon. My doctor didn't know that I had a baseline, and I just played dumb. And I said,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I heard about those tests. Yeah, I'd like to get one of those. 2 days later, my doctor sends me a text message. Now, I don't know about you guys. I mean, maybe you're a big shot in your doctor's office. I'm just a dude, right? So I don't get a text from my doctor. I get a text from the receptionist, hey,
Yeah.
confirming your appointment. You know what I'm saying? Well, I got a text from my doctor going, Mike, I just got your test results back. They're perfect. They're excellent. Your calcium score is 0. This is amazing. Now, he was basing that observation just based on my cholesterol levels and my family history. He just was convinced I was going to have blockages. Okay. He didn't know that I had a baseline. So we went back and forth on text a little bit. We ended up getting on the phone and I said, you want to see my test result from 18 months ago? And he's like, what? I go, I got a baseline. I sent him all the data. His words, he came back to me, goes, Mike, this is a miracle. This is an absolute miracle. There is nothing in medicine that you can completely dissolve calcium deposits. I go, well, bro, you're looking at the tests. There they are. He goes, well, and he's a believer. He goes, well, God healed you. And I went, hey, man, sign me up. I'll take every miracle I can get. However, you got to read the data. And so I sent him my file. And to his credit, he read all the data. Turns out he had a calcium score of 800, which is
Ooh.
not good, right? Anything over 500, they say you need to be working with a cardiologist. And he was. Anyway,
Mm.
he was a very sick man. He went on the protocol. 12 months later, he phones my cell phone. I was driving to the gym. He goes, Mike, I just got my test results back. He goes, just to let you know, I haven't told one human being. I haven't even told my wife yet. You're the first person I'm talking to. He said, Mike, 12 months ago, I had a calcium score of 800. Today it's 200. So I had
Mm.
a 75% reduction in my calcium score, which is impossible. Plus, I had an angiogram and I have no soft plaques anywhere in my heart arteries. He goes,
Wow.
you just cured my heart disease. And I just was like, I mean, it was mind-boggling to me. So then we said, okay, what are we going to do? Here's the moral imperative. And Kurt, we
Yeah.
chatted. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not unsophisticated. I know that the drug companies and the medical establishment and the Food and Drug Administration, they don't want this stuff.
Mm.
So it's like, oh my gosh, do we want to go into this lion's den? And the answer was an overwhelming yes. It absolutely, yes. We're going to follow the rules. We're going to do it properly. We're going to follow the FDA guidelines, et cetera, et cetera. But we're going to get this information out to people. We're very fortunate to get connected. It's so many synchronicities, man. But I
Yeah.
got connected with a phenomenal lab out of Atlanta. GMP certified, NSF certified, all the right accreditations. They custom blend a formula exactly the protocol that I was using and my doctor is using, and that's not now what we're making available to people. So it's just kind of a remarkable journey.
I just love it. It's awesome. It's inspirational, first of all. And I know I think it took you 3 years to do all the research, find all the scholarly articles, which, as you mentioned earlier, one of them, the NATO, was from 1960s. The information was out there, but either there's no money in it for pharma, or it just wasn't something that, you know, aside from you, who put two and three together and came up with five finally. And
Yep.
it's funny, I've talked to other people and they've mentioned the importance of vitamin D3 or D3 and K2,
Yep.
but they were completely unaware, as before meeting you, I was as well. I didn't know about the enzymes, and uh, we're really excited. I immediately started the regime and can't wait for other people to go to your website and learn more. There's multiple videos there. And to the last point you were making, I think it was I can't remember her name, but you will, the woman who was the editor for the New England Journal of Medicine, who talked about that in her experience. Maybe you can fill in the blanks for me because my memory is a little vague on it, but basically saying, look, after all of her time reading and talking with doctors, attending conferences, etc., heart disease is still prevalent. It's out there. It's been researched ad nauseum, but really, what's going on? We can't really just rely on what we're reading anymore.
Yeah, it's very tragic, but any of us that are even doing a modicum of research, this is not news to us. And
Mm.
I also can't remember her name, but I got it
Is it
posted on the
Marcia
website.
Engel, I think?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right,
Okay.
Dr. Engel. And she was
Yeah.
the editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, which is arguably,
Mm.
one of the top journals in the world.
Yeah.
And she goes, look, it's just at the point now where you just can't trust any of these trials anymore. You cannot trust the studies because of who's funding the studies,
They're
and the
directing them.
data is corrupted, and the conclusions are corrupted. And she goes, it gives me this is public. She said this publicly. She goes, it
Yeah.
gives me no joy to tell you this, but
Yeah.
the system's busted, which is really tragically sad. And
Well, I love
anybody who has a modicum of intellectual honesty, all we have to do is look at what happened during COVID. I mean, come on, man.
absolutely. Well, if you were to meet someone who really didn't know about this, what's your first message to them?
Uh, I resonate back to what I was originally saying, which is my highest value is truth. And
Yeah.
it's so profoundly interesting to me that some people are truth seekers and some people are truth deniers and some people are
Mhm.
ambiguous. And it's not my job to determine what they should or shouldn't do. My goal is just to give them the information. Of course, I have to be guarded in the language that I use, but the message I want to
Yes.
get to them is, look, your health is your responsibility. It's not your doctor's responsibility, it's yours. Your doctor's job is to give you their opinion so that you can make an informed decision. But you can't make an informed decision until you have all of the facts. So my whole premise is, let's give you another body of evidence, another group of facts. Let's get you up to speed. My goal is not to get people hyped up or jacked up or emotionally excited, although all those things are wonderful. My goal
Yeah.
is to get people educated. I want them smarter. Because you all know, I mean, hey, you go on something, you get all excited, whatever, it's an
Yeah.
infomercial or these supplements. Hey, take a pill and you get six-pack abs in 5 days or whatever. You know, give us
Yeah.
a break, right?
Make things, take
Right?
action, get educated and take action.
Amen,
I think
brother. Because
one of
once
the
you're
things I
educated, you don't lose that. You don't wake up tomorrow uneducated. Your
no,
platform has raised.
that's so true. I remember in reading that and looking at your website and looking at the videos and trying to really dive into it a little bit more, the 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 promise that this may hold as well for other types of plaques. And for all the people who've been through COVID, I have several friends that got the shots, got the boosters, and I'm hearing about all sorts of plaques and buildups, aneurysms, you name it. But if I'm not mistaken, there's some sort of evidence that this may actually help them as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's just talk about the mechanisms of how plaques form.
Great.
We'll
Yeah.
talk cardiovascular, and then I'll talk about the COVID.
Okay.
It starts with inflammation. There's some sort of inflammation in your body, which is chronic. It could be air pollution. It could be something in the water. It could be a food additive, a chemical, a dye. Well, it could be exercise. Things stress our body and it causes
Yeah.
inflammation. The healing response of our body So you've got some inflammation in an arterial wall. The first thing our body does is it sends cholesterol there. And I liken it to kind of like spackle. When you have a dent in the drywall, you smooth it over with some plaster, a little bit of spackle to smooth that dent over. That's what our
Yeah.
body does naturally. It puts a little spackle on there, a little cholesterol. It also produces a protein called fibrin. And fibrin, if you look at it under a microscope, it's like a spider web. It's this thin string-like structure. Think of rebar in a concrete wall. And so
Hmm.
that fibrin goes to that cholesterol, and it essentially holds that bandage in place in your body so your body can heal. Well, Kurt, 100 years ago, when we lived in feast and famine, or a couple hundred years ago, there were lots of times where we didn't have three square meals a day.
Mm.
And in fact, the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016 was a study. It was a Japanese doctor, I can't remember his name, but it was for fasting. And he
Mm.
identified this state called autophagy. Auto,
Yes.
self, phage, eat. Your body eats itself. So your body produces enzymes to break down exogenous, unnecessary proteins, basically waste products, and recycles them into new living cells. And back
Mm.
in the day, any of these little plaques, they would have gotten digested, repurposed, and we'd be fine. Well, we don't live in that time anymore. So you get some inflammation, and we have chronic inflammation because of our society. Like, who
Yeah.
even knows about electromagnetic frequencies and what they're doing and
Absolutely.
5G? And we don't know. This is so
Nope.
cutting edge, right? So
Yeah.
we get some inflammation. We get fibrin, cholesterol, fiber. They kind of build up over time, and then long term over time they can calcify because cholesterol is a thick, waxy fat, and cholesterol can get stuck in there. We get hardening of the arteries, atherosclerosis.
Yep.
Well, taking the leap now to COVID, and I've had a couple of really fascinating conversations. I was out at dinner with Dr. Peter McCullough a few months ago,
Mm.
and most people know him now.
Mm.
Most published cardiologist in the history of the world, and he's really just taken on this COVID thing head on. They fired
Mm.
him from his job. He just got decimated. He's sacrificed to really get truth out to people. He's a hero, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And he was saying, Mike, there is, and we were sitting down, like we were talking to each other. And he said, Mike, there is not a physician on planet Earth that can tell you how long that spike protein is going to stay in somebody's body. They just don't know. And there's a very real case. It could be you get a vaccinated person mating with a vaccinated person and they pass it on to their children. It could now be in the DNA of humanity from now on. We just don't know. It's not
Mm.
a vaccine, it's experimental gene therapy. I
Mm.
had another friend of mine, Dr. Hal Newball. Hal graduated number one in his class at Harvard Medical School. He was a professor of medicine at Johns Hopkins, was nominated for a Nobel Prize in medicine. The guy is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant physician. And by the way, he's referring people to our protocol. But he said, Mike, that spike protein, which is the delivery mechanism for the vaccine, and remember they said, oh, just be localized. It'll just stay in your arm. Well,
Mm.
that wasn't true. It's through your
Mm.
whole body, this spike protein. He said,
Mhm.
imagine millions and millions and millions of mines just coursing through your body, and they bump into anything and they explode and they cause this inflammation. That's what the spike protein is doing. Our body is then now sending fibrin as a healing response to that inflammation. And we're seeing all of these huge clots, all these morticians, they can't embalm people because their bodies are filled with clots. And they say they're not blood clots, they're fibrin clots. So
Yeah.
here's what we're having, and this is not my opinion. We have the studies on the website at the Learning Center
Yep.
that these enzymes, serrapeptase and nattokinase, they dissolve the spike protein. So they degrade the spike protein. So that's mechanism number one, is let's shut off that landmine that's causing all this explosion. Let's dissolve that. And not my opinion, these enzymes do that. The second thing that they do, we call them proteolytic enzymes, but it's interchangeable with the word fibrolytic enzyme. These enzymes dissolve fibrin. And so these clots that are forming are fibrin clots. So this is a two-prong approach. First
Yep.
of all, let's degrade and shut off the spike protein from causing the fibrin to accumulate. And now let's dissolve the fibrin. I'll give you a little parenthetical story. We're at the Changing Life and Destiny conference.
Yep.
The chairman of that organization is a gentleman by the name of Alpernia.
Yep.
Great guy. He is just committed to really making a difference and bringing truth to the healthcare world. Well, he was he lives in Beverly Hills. He has three clinics out there, but he's got a network of thousands of clinics across the country. And he was in UCLA in critical care, ICU with COVID. He didn't take the vaccine, but he got knocked to the curb with COVID. He
Yeah.
was in there for 7 days. Thankfully, they never put him on a ventilator because who knows if he would have survived.
Mm.
But he survived. Since that time, he would have just enormous pressure in his chest. He said, Mike, it was debilitating. It was painful. It was horrible. He goes, I was convinced I was having a heart attack. He goes, twice I actually went to the ER and said, I am having a heart attack. And they said, no, you're
Wow.
not. And he goes, it was a result of his opinion of long COVID. He goes, Mike, I'm the chairman of the Changing Life and Destiny Conference. I'm the chairman of the Functional Health Alliance. I tried every treatment, alternative things under the sun. And
Mm.
the best that would happen, maybe a day or two, I might feel a little bit better, but nothing resolved it. He goes, the only thing I did difference is I went on your protocol. Within 4 days, all that pressure had resolved itself. He goes, I've never had another attack since. And I told him, I said, Al, that's not a placebo effect. Here are the studies. Yeah, that's what happened. We're degrading the spike protein and we're dissolving the fibrin. And now we've got this pandemic. And I'm not talking the COVID pandemic. I'm
Mm.
talking the results of all these people that are being injured. I mean, my God,
Yeah.
1,800 Olympic athletes died last year. The fittest people on the planet are dropping dead. You know,
No.
it's
I
insane.
agree. I think for anybody listening, if this doesn't motivate you to look deeply into this and visit forheartstrong.com, look at the videos, read for yourself, like Mike's been saying, educate yourself, and I think you'll be spurred to action, just like I was.
Yep,
There's so much more I could talk to you about, Mike. I know it's even showing maybe some early promise in some studies on amyloid plaques in the brain and what that
yep,
could portend for maybe helping with Alzheimer's and other things. So I just salute you, and I'm privileged to have met you, and I look forward to further conversations. And if there's anything we can do to help you, please let us know. We look forward to having you come out here at some point to Phoenix and speak to some of the people face to face. I think you've got an incredible life-changing option for people who are looking for solutions because much like us, we're all, I think there's an awakening happening and people are looking and seeking and trying some things that frankly we should have been on for a long time. Our grandfathers and grandmothers knew this stuff and people in Japan had known about it. I mean, it's just
yep,
part of their life. So,
yep.
well, thanks for the time today.
My
Again,
pleasure.
we'll get back to you, and if there's anything else we can do. In closing, I would just say, everybody out there, there are lots of options out there, and I would encourage anybody who's really interested in learning more at next year's Changing Life and Destiny conference to consider attending. It is simply mind-boggling what you'll find there, and Mike's a big part of why it's a success. So, thanks again, Mike. Appreciate it.
My pleasure,
Anything else
Kurt.
you'd like to say in closing?
No, I just appreciate the platform. I mean, we're kindred spirits. We just want to help the people. And you know how it is. The truth can set you free, but people have to be truth seekers and they have to go after it. And they have to have enough courage in their own self-education. Once you know the truth, you got to have enough courage to act on it. And I understand there's
Absolutely.
all kinds of forces trying to distract you and,
Mhm.
oh no, that's crazy or that's wrong. And hey, at a certain point, you just got to trust yourself to do the right thing because you're the patient. So
Absolutely. You got to
don't
be
let
your own
anybody.
best advocate. You got to be your own
Yeah,
best advocate.
I'm with you, bro. Absolutely. So I
All right, dude.
appreciate you big time.
Thanks so much. Take
You
care.
bet.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.